Hello, I'm Michelle Robertson. I'm the program coordinator for the Library Media and Education program. I'm also an instructor for that program. Basically, what we do is teach the next generation of school librarians. I truly hope that the librarian at whatever site you get employed has a wonderful librarian that will help you. Technology is one of those key things that librarians are kind of called upon to help with. So that is kind of my goal. So the things that I'm going to show you today, if you take it to your librarian, they should be able to help you, especially with Nearpod or Flipgrid. Those are ones that have been out there for quite a while. Well, quite a while in tech terms, like in the last 2 years. So I hope there are things that either I'm going to show you enough that you can do them on your own if for some reason you either don't have a librarian, or you try to have a conversation with your librarian about these tech tools and they look at you like you're speaking a whole different language. You will be able to do these on your own. But you and your students will get more out of it if you go collaborate with your librarian, and the librarian is hopefully going to be helpful. So I'm going to click on share screen so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so first one we've kind of already talked about. Okay, so this presentation is going to be broken down into 3 sections. I'm going to talk about the standards and the objectives. Then we're going to talk about Nearpod. That's going to be the first of the tech tools that we're going to talk about. The second one is going to be Flipgrid. And I always kind of like to know personally how long these videos are going to last. So that way, when this video is done, I will go back in and you'll be able to tell how long this first section lasts, how long the second section and the third section lasts. I do provide breaks in between them so you kind of know, okay, now's a good time to kind of stop and either go ahead and do the reflection on that section at that point. I know some of the programs that you listen to this week have you doing a reflection at the end. For me, and for what I have learned since I've been in my current position at UCO over the last 4 years, is that especially when it comes to tech, people do better if they do whatever the assignment is and then reflect on the process that you went through at that point, instead of waiting till we get, because especially if I'm presenting, if I was just doing Nearpod, that's all you have to focus on, but you're gonna have to focus on 2 different things. So I want to know what your thoughts are reflection wise, working with Nearpod, and then I want to work with Flipgrid and know what your thoughts are on that one. If I wait to the end, things get mushed together and it's really hard to tell what you thought about Nearpod compared to Flipgrid. So that's why you actually will have 2 different reflections, one on Nearpod and one on Flipgrid. So, but at any point, please feel free to hit pause and get up and move around, do whatever you need to do. I know if you're doing this from home, especially that, doorbells ring, phones ring, dogs bark, kids come running in, any number of things can happen while you're trying to do this stuff from home. So you can always hit the pause button. Alrighty. Moving on. Okay, so Dr. Dellinger probably already talked about the ISTE standards. I'm going to cover 2 different ISTE standards. The first one's going to be ISTE Standard 5. You're going to have access to this Google Slides. It's in my presentation sheet that was emailed to you. If you click on anything that you see in blue in my Google Slides is a hot link to something. So if you click on it, it will take you to the ISTE standards. Like I said, I know Dr. Dellinger has already covered this. We're going to be working on the ones for educators. As you can see, there are a lot of different ones that are out there. These 2 are the newest one. This one, of course, came about because of STEM or STEAM, depending on which one you're talking about. ISTE started out with just students and teachers because that's, at least in theory, that was the ones that were going to be using these standards the most. Then they decided to loop in the principals and all of the administrative people, because they have to know how to support you. Okay, you've got these standards, great, but how are they going to support you getting there? And coaches, honestly, coaches have a lot to do and can help. So if that's actually a position that you end up in, you still have ISTE standards that you can teach too. And if you're using the evaluation, whether you're using Marzano or if you're using the TLE evaluation process, tech is a part of it. Your principal is going to be observing you, and wanting to know how you're doing this. That's why I'm hoping that you're at a site that where a librarian can help you with this, because that will make it better for both you and your students. But if not, like I said, I'm going to give you enough tools today that you can get started and kind of do this on your own if that's how this rolls out. So, alrighty, so let's get back to, so there's our standards. You can always go back through and read these on your own. I don't think it's something you need me to take time to read to you. Okay, so this is the first break slide. You probably don't need a break at this point, but hey, if you do, go ahead. Like I said, I will, as soon as I'm done with this, I will go back in and tell you how much time it's going to take to watch the next section. I also know from my personal experiences of being a student that, especially when it comes to tech and it's something that you haven't done before, you take copious notes. The next 3 slides basically are going to be the directions for the Nearpod assignment that you're going to need to complete. So if you need to print those directions so you have them as I'm going through and you can make notes, now's a good time, while you're taking, hit pause. If you click on, this is blue again, so if you click on this, it will take you to the directions and on what exactly we're going to be doing and what I expect you to do, okay? So there's that. So if now is a good time, like I said, if you need to go print those, great, go get that done. If you have 2 screens, you can always look at this on one screen and, do it on another screen. So not everybody has 2 screens. So, okay, but we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hit pause for a couple of minutes, and that way if you need to do that, you can. Okay, so the first Web 2.0 tool that you're going to be using today is called Nearpod. Nearpod, like it says on the screen, is one of those Web 2.0 tools that you can actually take things from your lesson, content that you can create. You can drag in videos. You can drag in, if there's specific websites that you want them to go look at for whatever the topic is you may be covering. You can put everything. It's called one-stop shopping, and instead of having all this stuff scattered, it's in one spot. Prior to things like Nearpod existing, I can tell you it was a little chaotic creating what we then called in the olden days pathfinders. And that's basically what Nearpod does. It gives you a way to pull all of those resources together into one place. And so your students aren't having to go out and in and out in different places and click on this and click on that. It's all in one spot. You can put the assessment in there. You can put activities that you want them to do in there. There's, I know that there are some textbook companies that if your district has access to the electronic textbook side, you can put links to the portion of the textbook that you want students to make reference to while they're working on an activity. In my mind, it is the cat's pajamas. So, and it's one of those that, like I said, it's only been out there a few years, but at this point, there probably really aren't very many people who haven't at least heard of Nearpod. They may not be using it or exactly know to the degree that you're getting ready to find out that it can be used. But it's one of those, especially if at some point in this school year, we end up back in the situation where your students are having to do their assignments from home. This is a great way to kind of push that content out to them. This is also if your school is a what we call a Google district. This works well with Google. If your school district uses Canvas, this works well with Canvas. So, and if you're like, what is that? Trust me, if your site hasn't talked to you about it yet, then you're probably not. And if you haven't been hired yet and they start talking about it, you will get probably way more details than you want me to get into at this point. So, okay, so that's kind of the background of Nearpod. So here, sorry about that. Okay, so this is the assignment. Basically, I want you to create a lesson for a grade level of your choice and a topic of your choice. And this kind of gives you exactly what I'm looking for. So on the title slide, you're going to give me the topic, let's say American Revolution. Depending on what part of the American Revolution we're talking about, I'm going to say, let's go, I personally would go with 5th grade because that's, you know, where I personally know those standards are covered. And then I want to see your first and last name on that slide. Then the next thing we're going to do is I want you to create a lesson using these tools. I'm going to go through the directions on this, so don't panic if you're like, what? Okay, so you're going to create a content slide and you're going to insert a YouTube video. Once I show you this, you will think, ooh, this is cool. Then you're going to do 2 web content slides using different websites. I will also show you that. And then you're going to add an activity of your choice. Okay, so that's what you need to have when you look at your project and say, is this done? Make sure it has all of these things on there. And like I said, I will show you how to work through all of that here in just a minute. Okay, so these are the steps that you're going to need to take. I give you the link to the Nearpod site, so you'll need to go there. You're going to need to create a teacher account. I suggest that you look at the pre-made lessons. You can't use a pre-made lesson for this assignment, but you can get an idea from there, okay? So if for some of you haven't been assigned to a site yet, you know, maybe you're like going, and you know, you'll see something that you like, you're like, oh, that's a good idea, I can do that. And so you can use that idea from there, that's fine. And then number 4, it tells you to go back and look at the previous slide that tells you all the things that you need to include. When you're done, you're going to be sending me a link to your Nearpod assignment, okay? So let's get into Nearpod. So this is Nearpod. And like I said, the first step after you click on this link or navigate to this link is you're going to create a teacher account. It says sign up, it's free. So I already have an account, but you'll need to go through the steps of creating an account. So just go through that. Once you have an account, it's gonna allow me to log in here. Here you go. So as you can tell, we've played with this for different reasons. This is my professional account. I have a personal account that has way more stuff than this on it because I use it for different things. So yeah. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice is that when it says create your own lessons in Google Slides, you can use Google, you can embed this in Google Slides. There are way more details involved in how to do that than I want to get into in this video. That is pretty much a couple of hours worth of PD and obviously not something that is meant to be covered in this particular PD. So what we're going to do instead is create a lesson just in Nearpod. So if you go down and click on Lesson in Nearpod, there you go. So basically you need to think about Nearpod like PowerPoint on steroids is what some people have called it. And that's very true. If you have, as you can see, you can drag and drop. If you have different files that you want to use in a lesson, drag them over, drop it in, ta-da, it's there. No having to go, the old days of having to go, you know, save it somewhere and then upload it. I mean, you can still do that, but as I'm sure you've done that probably a million times at this point, it can take a while depending on the size of what you're trying to, you know, upload. So drag and drop is my personal favorite. All right, so first thing we're gonna have to do is add a slide. So the first thing I tell you to do was to create, you're going to add content and then click on slide. Because the first thing I asked you to do, give it a second to load here, is create a title slide. So I'm going to stick with my American, I'm not going to spell it all the way out, but you're basically going to say American, give me whatever your topic is, that's what the title is going to be. Then down here, if you had content that you wanted to just drag and drop, you could do that here. We're actually going, because I asked you to give me a grade level and give me your name. Okay, and there you go. Easy peasy. Your first slide is done. You will notice over here all the lovely different themes. You are certainly welcome to use one of these themes if you want to. There you go. That one's not my personal favorite. There you go. I like that one better. You'll also notice that if you look down on the bottom right-hand corner, you can change the, from small, the size of your font, sorry. You can change that. You can, where you centered it, to the left, to the right, to the middle. You can insert, yep, you can put bullet points, or you can add numbers. And if you look at this slide and go, oh man, that's a hot mess, we're gonna do something else, I don't think so, you can do that. It does have a preview button if you wanted to preview it. I'll give you, that chance to look at it if you just hit escape. Oops, did they change it? Right, okay, so what you see here is if there's somebody, if you're having a problem with Nearpod and you just want to talk to one of these people that's out there, they will instant message you back and forth. This is a great way to start a conversation. If you're like, okay, I know there's a way, there's got to be a way to do this, I just don't know what that is. That is always there, and that's always down in the bottom right-hand corner. You can change the background if you wanted to add an image to your background. Now, the librarian in me is going to tell you to be careful with images. If you just go into Google Images and drag something in, that doesn't mean that you haven't broken copyright. So be very, very careful with any image that you use in a presentation. You'll hear people banter around about fair use. Fair use is not as all-encompassing for educators as they think it is. I would suggest that you go talk to your librarian. If your librarian's not sure, go talk to your principal, because honestly, if you break copyright and somebody calls you on it, your principal's going to be the one having to defend what you're doing, because of course they will have signed off on the lesson that you're teaching. So yeah, just a quick side note there and from library land. If for some reason this is what I call the traditional like PowerPoint slide with the title on top and the content in the bottom, but if for some reason that doesn't meet your needs, there are other options out there if you click on that. If you click on the audio button, you can record what the content that's on this slide. If you have students that obviously are hearing impaired or have a visual impairment of some sort, that would help them. The hearing impaired ones, you're like, how could that help them? If it reads it into a machine, then it works for them. Just trust me, it works for them. There's a whole level of explanation there I'm not going to get into. Okay, so you've basically, though, like I said, have created your first slide. So if you go save and exit, before I save and exit, if you're using this, depending on what grade level you're teaching, if you're going, you tell your students, okay, I want you to create a Nearpod, and then walk them through what you want them to do. If they've never used Nearpod before, you need to give them time to play. Just play. Don't give them anything that you're looking for them to do, just because kids are really good, especially in tech, about clicking on everything. Where most of you, you've probably obviously paid attention when I was pointing out things, but if I hadn't pointed out those things, you would have done exactly what I told you to do, hit save, exit, got out, and moved on. Okay, there's a component to that I've got a life more than my students do. I have other responsibilities than my students do, so there's that. But students are really good, but you need to give them time to do all that sightseeing, get all their button pushing over, and then come back and say, okay, now it's time to focus. Now we're going to work on this, and this is what I want you to do. Okay, so there's that. So let's click on save and exit. So you can change the new theme you selected will also modify the other slides. So yes, I want to do that. There you go. It's thinking about it. Okay, so while it's busy thinking, you can actually go on and work on the next thing. So we're going to click on add a slide again. This time I said I wanted you to add some web content. Now this may be where you have to pause for a second, and you're going to need to find 2 web pages that you want to use with your content. If you happen to know 2 websites already that are student friendly, then, you know, and you've also got to remember, if your students are doing this at school, you have to make sure that it's going to get past the firewall at school. Honestly, I've created things at home, gone to school, checked my links before I started teaching a lesson, and like half the links won't work because they won't get through the firewall at school. So keep that in mind. If you do something at home, make sure you check the links when you get to school. For this, yeah. Okay. So I am just going to use one that I know, the Library of Congress. Haha, librarian, we use this all the time. It does give you the option of test the link to make sure the link is active and that it will go where you want it to go. I happen to know that this one works, so I'm good. I'm going to hit save. And this is one of the things that I like about Nearpod. Bang, it drops it a slide in there. So when the student's proceeding, you know, either you're walking them through the different slides, or if they're doing this on their own from home, it's, you know, they click on it, they just follow the order. You just tell them to follow the order of the slides, and they've got that content. As you can see in the background now, you can see that the Library of Congress website is actually sitting there in the background, so you can see it. Okay, I actually tell you to use two different websites. I'm just going to use one for the sake of explaining it. The procedure's the same. So you would just go back in, add a slide, add web content, either copy and paste the URL and paste it in here, or if, like you said, if you know it in your head, that's, you know, and can drop it in there, that's fine too. So you're going to do two, I'm only doing one, so keep that in your head. The next thing I ask you to do is to add an activity. Some of these activities you will have access to from the free version of Nearpod. There's a paid version. Some school districts have it, some school districts don't. I know some of the smaller school districts, like a school will have it, like the elementary school has it because their principal elected to use his budget that way, but then the secondaries don't have it. Let me tell you, that causes a nightmarish situation, but it happens. So, but in the free version, if you know, like if you just click, this is where you need to do some sightseeing. You know, time to climb. These are just different activities that you can do. You will not have access to all of them. So if you click on it and you go, it won't let me do it. Yeah, it's because it's a drawback to the free version. But you can use any of these. Open-ended questions, matching pairs. You can do a quiz. Yay, I know they're always so fascinating. Flipgrid, we're going to talk more about Flipgrid. It is not, at the time I'm shooting this video, a part of, you can't click on it and embed it easily into Nearpod unless you have the paid version. Draw It, let me see. It's one of those that they were talking about going to add it. Okay, so Draw It now, so you can use Draw It. At one point they were talking about adding it into the free version, so it looks like they have. Oops, let's go back to the activity slide here. Collaborate, that one's going to be a little harder to do unless you know your students are all kind of doing things within a similar time frame. You can always have them take a poll, of course, fill in the blanks. That's always their favorite. And a memory test. That one's also pretty cool. So pick one, you know, like I said, do a little bit of sightseeing, try to figure out which one you want to use. You only have to create one activity, and then it will go in, and for the sake of just showing you one, I'm going to do a fill in the blank. This is not one of their favorites, I will tell you, is it from a student perspective, because from our perspective of knowing like what a ditto is, where the teacher hands you a piece of paper and says, okay, fill in the blanks, and you have like a word bank at the bottom or at the top, and they want you to use all the words. This is just a digital version of that. There are times that, yes, I think that serves a purpose, but it gets overused, and so the students, the minute they see it, go ick and pull back, and you'll just see their whole facial change. So it says you can, if you've created something in another document, let's say Word, you can't copy and paste that in here, or you can, you can also change the background. So it's type or paste your text here. I don't recommend using a dark background because there may be things that your students can't see, and that's also the case with when you create slides in general. The lighter the background, typically the better it is for the students. So you can say, and do like name. I also don't recommend using this font that I'm using because it's really hard especially for English second language students, this is not a good font for them. So you need to stick to more block lettering. The more, fancy lettering, not a good idea. So if you have name, date, and that's all. I mean, you're obviously going to use content questions. You'd be asking, if I was creating this for real, I would be asking questions about, like, who was the first president of the United States of America? And there you go. So if you click on next, click words on the right to add to the word bank. So you're going to have to create your word bank, and then you're going to click on done. Okay, so if you do it here, USA. Okay, when you create the question, sorry, if you go back, you will lose your word bank. Yes, go ahead and go back. So you're going to give them options, like, let's say G.O. Washington, and I can't spell today. Abe Lincoln. I'm not doing well in spelling today. Or if you give them those options, then of course always going to fix that. There you go. Okay, so now if you click next and click words to add them, so that one's going to go into your word bank. That'll go into your word bank. That one will, and that one will. And so now you've got your word bank. Easy peasy, right? So click on done. And there it is. Ta-da! So that's one, like I said, it's one-stop shopping. Your whole lesson is literally right here in front of the students and you. You can see it, they can see it. As you can see now in the background, it's got the blanks there. So they'll be able to drag and drop the answers in there. So it works really well in that sense. Okay, so now if you're ready to save, when you've got all of your slides in here, you're going to click on Save and Exit. I always recommend that you give your lesson a title that you will remember it, because after you create a lot of these, you won't remember. If you're having your students create it, I suggest that, and I want you to do this, have them put their name and the topic. So because if you have a student, if you're especially in secondary and you have a student in more than one class, maybe you're teaching multiple subjects, maybe you have them in the morning for like an English language class, but in the afternoon you have them for something else. But you're using Nearpod in both classes. You need to be able to distinguish between, okay, so this student created this in the morning, and because you can tell by the topic, and then this student created this in the afternoon because it's based on the topic. So for those of us in higher ed, I do it purely based on, so I know because we have multiple classes, they could have me in 2 or 3 classes in the same semester. So that way it just helps me when I'm looking at them, I can help keep it straight. They will require that you pick a grade level, at least one. So obviously I'm going to pick that one. You can pick more than one if you choose to. You can pick a subject if you want to. Now I think this is actually required now. They're going to make you pick one. So I'm going to click Social Studies, and then I'm going to click on Save and Exit. And give it a minute. It's going to do its thing. Ta-da! There it is. Okay, now you can do this lesson as what they call a live session. Basically, that's where you're Zooming or using Google Hangouts or Skype or whatever your school district has chosen to use. You go live in Google, I'm going to say you go live in Zoom, and you walk them through the slides, basically. If you're going to push the link out to the students and say, here you go, I want you, this is what I want you to do this week. This also works great for those of you who know what a flipped classroom is, where you basically push the content. They do all of the book work in advance, and then when they get to your classroom, you do the application side of it. I've seen flipped classrooms be very successful, but it's one of those things you have to train the students to do. It's not something you can expect them to walk in and have it just be beautiful the first time out of the block. but it works really well if that's something that you're interested in. There's lots and lots of details out there. Okay, so it says student paste. If you click on student paste, it says access student paste module to support, and so it says get access. Yay! Okay, so require student submission. For me, you don't need to click on this, but obviously you want to do that if that's something, this is an assignment that you want your students to do. This is the code that you would give the students so they can go back in. You can email it, you can send them a link, you can embed it. Like I said, if you're a Google district, it works well in Google Classroom. You can send it out on the Remind app, which is a whole nother conversation, so that we're not going to get into. If your school is using Microsoft instead of Google, you can use it in Microsoft Teams. I have not personally done it in Microsoft Teams, so I don't know how smooth it is. I do know it's really easy to use in Google Classroom. So for this assignment, for me, I asked you to send me the link to this assignment. So what you're going to do is click on this link. Before I click on that link, I'm going to show you here. If you click on View Progress, it will show you like the different assignments. It will show you the students who have done and what they have done. Okay, so that's always obviously a handy thing to have. So you need to click on the link. Okay, here's the link. So you're going to hit, you're going to hit copy. Then you're going to go to your email, and I gave you my email. So, and you're going to send it to me. Okay, and you're going to go copy and paste this into the email and send it off to me. And then I will look at it. And I promise I will look at it. As soon as you send it to me, I will look at it. My current students would tell you that I'm pretty good about looking at things within 6 hours or less. I'm one of those that, especially if I know an assignment's due, I'm constantly checking to see who's got what turned in. I try to grade it, quickly and get it back to them. So I'm not one of those that, leaves it out there till everybody's done and then go in and grade it. No, that's just my personal preference on how to be a teacher. So, so it won't take long. Once you submit it to me, I will get comments back to you. Okay, so that's how you do a Nearpod. So now, let me get out of this, and we're going to go back over here to our Google Slides. Okay, so I've now walked you through all of these steps. You now know what I want you to do and how you're going to do it. And there we go. Okay, now's the time for you to take a break. Like I said before, the reflections are right after you do each of the projects in this class. So now's the time that I want you to stop and take a few minutes and complete this reflection. It won't take you long. I'm not looking for some long narrative process, but basically as soon as you've got your, oh man, I'm sorry. You know what? I just totally misstated that. I'm used to doing this in a face-to-face class. You guys need to create your Nearpod first, then come back to this Google slide and click on the reflection. Don't do the reflection until you are completely done with your Nearpod, because basically I'm asking you, what do you think about the process of creating a Nearpod? What are your thoughts on it? And you're not going to have thoughts on it, obviously. These reflections are being shared. If no one's told you this, these reflections are being shared just so we kind of understand, we get feedback. So it's being shared with all the other instructors that you've had this week. So, and with the people that are in charge of Jump School. So, make sure your thoughts are well stated, I guess I'll put it that way. Some of them, I've noticed that some of the professors have created like multiple questions. I only have one question, but my goal is that you be very thoughtful of the process that you went through to create your Nearpod. So as I would tell an undergraduate student, 2 sentences isn't going to cut it. As adults, I think you probably already understand that, but in case you needed to hear it, there you go. It will give you the option of giving, multiple sentences, and that's kind of what is expected in this. There is no right and wrong in what you choose to tell me in this reflection. So just keep that in mind as well. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to click on the next slide. And this is where you're going to take a break for a few minutes if you need to. This would be a good time if you want to click on this link. It will take you to the Flipgrid directions and kind of, so you can take notes if you need to do that. But now's a good time to take a break. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for about a minute, and then we will move on to Flipgrid. Okay, so welcome back. Now then, here we go. All right, so let's talk about Flipgrid. Flipgrid is one of those tools that, as much as I understand writing is important, there are times that you will get a better reflection from a student if they just shoot a video. And some of your students may be, I guess the word, it may bother them to shoot a video, so they may not be able to put their face on the video. They may have to like point their smartphone or whatever they're using, like point it down at the ground, but you can still hear their voice. And yes, I've had students do that. And that's fine. And that's just something you need to put out there, that like, if you don't want to put your face on the video, that's fine. Then you need to, I've had students like take and write out a sign saying this is, like put their name on it and then point the camera at that. And I can still hear their voices. By the time you do a Flipgrid, there's a good chance that you're going to know if it's them or not based on their voice. So that way you get to hear, but honestly, even in graduate school level, I've had better reflections on lessons when I've used Flipgrid, and I use Flipgrid quite a bit for that very reason, because I think there are times that, while yet, like I said, it's important to be able to write, there are going to be questions that as school librarians we get asked, and you need to have an answer for them. You can't stop, you can't go research the answer. You need to be able to have something right then and be able to respond and go. So that's one of, but like I said, Flipgrid's one of those things that, yes, you can do it in class. Personally, you're going to get a better answer if you let class in. You tell them, I need you to have this done before you come back to class tomorrow. Or if it's Friday and you're going to give them the weekend to get it done, that's fine. It is private. People do not have access to these videos. I'm not going to tell you they can't be hacked, because that would just be stupid on my part. But you need to go over the rules of what's to be said, how things, if they're going to make, I'll show you how that they can make comments on each other's videos. You need to go over cyberbullying. There's lots of things, you need to lay out up front in case something happens. This is one of those heavy procedural things that you need to load up front. Digital citizenship, like I said, tech is one of those things that's covered a lot out of the library. So if you don't feel comfortable covering digital citizenship content, talk to your librarian. And like I said, it's one of those things that we're supposed to cover. So we're going to hope that your librarian is willing to do that. So your assignment for this one, and this is going to be the last assignment that you do. So this one is truly going to be fun. It may take you a second or two to think of a reflective question, but based on whatever topic and grade level you choose to use for this assignment, you can use the same topic and subject that you used for the Nearpod for this one. Or if you want to do something entirely different, that's fine. That is your choice. But you're basically going to create a Flipgrid for a grade level, and you get to choose, it's your choice. Once again, of grade level and topic, whatever you want to do is fine. The items you're going to need to include are, like I said, you need to ask a reflective question about the assignment, and then you're going to create an example video within the Flipgrid that you create. If you don't, I can tell you the hot messes that you will get, you will think you have failed miserably, and that won't be the case. You just probably will not have laid down enough foundation for them to understand. And understand that also that the first few Flipgrids that they create, this whole reflective process, and we've noticed this at the undergraduate and the graduate level, is really hard because we're not asked to stop and reflect on, especially using higher level thinking skills on a regular basis. That's just not usually a part of most people's jobs, and especially to articulate them in a video presentation. So it gets the first several times you do this, you might want to just, like I said, like in Nearpod, I said, give them time to play. In Flipgrid, you might want to give them time, ask some snowball questions, give them a chance to get used to this process. Some of them, like I said, they're gonna spend a lot of time looking at their hair or their makeup or, what clothes they have on or, whatever. And then I've noticed within the first few weeks, that's what all our undergraduates and graduates do. And then by the time we get halfway through the semester, yeah, they don't care anymore. They may have their hair brushed and they may have on clean clothes, but that's it. They may also write out their responses in the beginning, but halfway through there is no more writing out their responses. They are doing totally extemporaneous speaking. They have read the content, they know what they're going to say, and off they go. So there. With younger students, when I've used this with younger students, they don't seem to be as cognizant as the students at undergraduates or graduates, but they're still, you're going to get a lot of uhs, ums, and whatnot. It used to be Flipgrid would only give you 5 minutes, so they were limited by 5 minutes. In one of the updates recently, they now have 10 minutes. I personally think they should be able to answer most questions in 5 minutes. So that's how long I've given, I would give you if I was creating a Flipgrid that I wanted you to do. That's just how it goes. So, all right, so let's get into the next slide and I will show you. Okay, so here's the link to get to Flipgrid. You're going to create an educator account, then you're going to create what they call a grid. You need to create a reflective question within the topic of your Flipgrid. Create an example video on how to answer your reflective question within Flipgrid, and then you're going to send me, you're going to send me a link. Sorry about that. You're going to send me a link to your Flipgrid, okay? And then once you're done with your Flipgrid, just like with your Nearpod, you're going to answer your reflection, my reflection question. Make sure that you don't do this step, this reflection step, until you have created your Flipgrid and you have sent the link to me. Then feel free to fill this out, okay? All right. Okay, so Flipgrid, here we go. Okay, so like I said, the first thing you're gonna need to do is to create an educator account. So go in through educator sign up, create an account. Once you have an account, you will go here. Here we go. Okay. Honestly, it's been a while. I've had my Flipgrid account for a couple of years now, so I'm not sure after you create an account and you log in for the first time, where exactly it's going to throw you in. But if you look across the tops, if you look at My Grids, it will take you to this page, and you see the sign where it says, or the button, sorry, where it says Add New Grid. As you can see, I use Flipgrids a lot. You're going to click on Add New Grid. Okay, now this is where the fun starts. For this one, type in your title or the topic of whatever you're going to use. And that's all you really need. I mean, I know their example provided more like how long the video is and blah, blah, blah. No, you don't need to do that. Okay, depending on your school, if your school uses Microsoft or Google emails, you can, and then this is how I would, if I was going to create one to use with our undergraduates or graduates, I would use their school emails, and that way you can log in with those credentials, and it just makes things easier, because so that way when you're required to change your password every 90 days, it changes it, it knows it, and it moves on, and it's an easy transition. You don't have to remember your password, and all is well with the world. If you have a list of students that you want to be able to join your grid, If you're not going to use a .edu email, then you need to click on student ID. For this one, because since we're all using potentially different email addresses, I want you to do the educator learning community, and this is share a public grid with educators in your network. So basically you're going to click on this one, and then we're going to click next. Alrighty. It says you can add a password if you feel that's something you want to do for this. You know, I highly recommend that you use a password if you're going to use this with your students. It's just that extra added layer for the hackers out there that have nothing better to do with their life. You know, so, you know, like I said, this is required. Well, it's required for the students. It's not required for you. If you add a password for this assignment that you're turning into me, please tell me what the password is. Okay. All right, so click next. Alrighty, as of right now, this is the link to your grid, and that's only marginally helpful. So I'm going to recommend don't copy this. I will show you what to do here in a minute. Now it says go to your grid. Ta-da! Okay, so now there are lots of fun things that you can do with your grid if you choose to. If you click on the pencil, it says you can edit your grid. If you'll go down here, you can pick a different picture if you choose to. I personally don't like that one. That just drives me crazy. You know, you can find one that, you know, you can also import pictures. Of course, I'm going to pick the one with the books because I'm the librarian. Like I said, you can drag and drop something in here if you have another image. Just remember what I said in Nearpod about images being copyright protected. You can receive email notifications when your students do videos or are submitted. It does give you an option. You can get those emails weekly. Every new video, you can get them daily, or you can get them never. Personally, like I said, I use it all the time, so I click on never because my email would just be pinging constantly. And yeah, no, thank you, I'll pass on that. But for this assignment, you can just leave it the default on daily. That won't hurt anything. On grid followers, allow students to receive email notifications when new topics are created and new videos are recorded. So if a classmate posts something, they get an email that somebody else has posted it. Select language to display auto-generated captions. This is actually very convenient, especially if you have English second language students, so they can see across the bottom. I will warn you, if you've not used closed caption before, if a student mutters or talks real quiet and they miss a word, it's not going to catch 100% of whatever, but my opinion is that it's better than nothing. So personally, I usually go in and turn it on and pick that one. Okay, so then there's the, you can add a password if you didn't do that earlier and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go back in and add a password. Okay, so now we're going to update your grid. Ta-da! This first one is just say hello on Flipgrid. I personally just ignore that one and just kind of yeah. All right, so what you're going to do then next is, now that you've got your grid, I said you need to create a reflective question yourself. So you're going to add a new topic within your grid. American Revolution. And then this is where you're going to actually add your question, your reflective question that you want your students to answer. So let's see. Okay, and that's not really a reflective question. It's more an in your opinion question. I've asked my students that before, and they're always get very interesting. Fifth graders are interesting in general, but you will get that. Okay, so recording time, like I said. Okay, so you can make them really short. 15 seconds is the shortest. 10 minutes, and this is new, can be the longest. I recommend 5 minutes. Video moderation. Now, this might be a good idea too, especially in the beginning. If you don't click this, where you see the video before it goes live to everybody else, as soon as they hit submit on their side of Flipgrid, it's going to go live and everybody can see it. Personally, I think that's a little dangerous. So I've, with my undergraduates and graduates, I don't do this, but with my elementary and middle school students, I did this because I wanted to see what they had said before it went out. And I personally never had any problems, but that doesn't mean I couldn't have had some problems at some point. So that's, like I said, that's just my video. As you can see, there's all kinds of other options down here. I'm not gonna, this is a whole nother level of stuff that I'm glad to share, but it's a whole different PD, so we're not gonna get into that right now. So once you've done that, if you go down and create topic, aha. Now, if you're gonna share a link with your students, either through Microsoft Teams or the classroom, or if you're gonna use the Remind app, or if you're gonna embed it, you know, say you've got a website that you're actually using to push all this stuff out, like Canvas. You just copy this and you're going to say all set and it's ready to go. So what you're going to do is when you copy that topic link, you're going to go into your email and you're going to send me the topic link. I don't want the grid link. I want the topic link. Okay. If somehow you get through that process and you're like, oh, I didn't get that. Where'd it go? You didn't get the URL. If you go back over to here, whoops, and you can just update your topic. See, there are lots of other things that you can add into your topic if you choose to. There are some things like the video title, view count, it'll show them. Sticky notes and while they're recording, that's up to you. For this one, it's not going to matter. You might want to turn that off if you're using it with your students. If you allow them to edit their videos, that could be a mess, but that is, you know, one of those choices. In the beginning, my theory is give them less access, and then over time you let things go. So that's your choice. You might want them to attach a link of some sort. I personally don't turn on the likes like you would see in other social media like Facebook and Twitter and, let's say, YouTube. It's just a layer of insanity that you just don't want to personally jump off that bridge. You can get student-to-student replies, and I will show you about that. I personally leave that on, and I'll show you why I think it's a good idea here in just a minute. For feedback, you can provide feedback on a response based on student verbalization and clarity of expressed ideas. Custom feedback, you can build custom feedback rubrics and embed them. I highly recommend rubrics, but like I said, that's a whole nother level of this. So we're not gonna actually get into that one. All right, so if you update your topic, that kind of gives you everything that you need. Now, see where it says start the discussion, share topic. If you go in on that, it will give you the link to the topic. Remember, I only want the URL for the link to the topic. I don't need the one for the grid. I want the one that goes specifically to that, okay? You'll also notice when you click on that one that it says make it easy for guests such as family members and content experts to access this specific topic. If you're going to do that, you just need to be careful who it goes out to, because remember, whoever has access to this can see whatever's going on. And that could be potentially dangerous, and unfortunately in the world that we live in today. So I have had family members, you know, students that had family members, you know, parents weren't together, grandparents that were raising the kids, but, you know, the parents were elsewhere. To give them the link to this, okay, you know, I think that actually is probably a good idea, but that's just a decision as an educator. You're going to have to kind of feel comfortable with it yourself and feel that there's a need for it. And that pretty much drives everything that we do. Okay, so if you just copy this, send the link to me via email, and then I will respond. Okay, now I did say I also wanted you to record an example. So from here, before you send me your topic link, you're going to record a response. So if you click on record a response, Okay, because I'm using this camera, you're not going to get, yeah, it's not going to load. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, because I'm using, I'm using Zoom right now, so it's not going to let me. But if you record a response, it will walk you through the steps that I want you to do. Basically, it will give you a screen that says, hit the button and you record. And then I'll let you review your video. And then if you're happy with it, then you post it. So once you have done that, you will see your response right here in the response section. And then as your students start to post, they will see that too. An example video will, trust me, just save you lots and lots of headache. So that's one of the reasons why I highly recommend that you provide an example. There you go. Okay, so that's it for now. If you have any questions as you start to work through either your Flipgrid or your Nearpod presentations, please email me. Like I said, I'm pretty good. My phone pings. I have it turned on to ping. So if you have a question, you should get a quick response. The only time you won't get a response is if I'm driving, and then obviously for obvious reasons, I won't be responding at that point. But other than that, like I said, I'm usually will respond. If no one has told you at this point, all of the content needs to be done by let's see, assuming today's Friday, and that's when you're watching this, it's actually due Sunday. So please make sure that you've got everything turned in, including your Nearpod and your Flipgrid. If you're working on this over the weekend, I'm still around. I'm not teaching a summer session, but this is a commitment, and it's one of those things as a teacher, once you kind of sign on for something, that you're committed to it. So please feel free to email me. I will not consider any question stupid. If it comes to a point where you're like, okay, if tech is one of those things that you're like, this scares me to death, I am happy to Zoom with you and kind of walk you through those steps. Like I said, as a school librarian, I have literally worked with teachers that were so scared to even touch the mouse or the keyboard, to those teachers who honestly, in some ways, had a higher tech IQ than I did at that point. So, but I'm comfortable working with all levels. So please don't feel bad about asking a question. Don't feel bad if you need me to Zoom with you. I am happy to do that. I'm a teacher. That's what I do. Okay. All right. So I hope everybody enjoys these assignments. Like I said, if you need me, please feel free to email me. Good luck.